Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence Independent Media, to one of our investigative reporting segments. We're going to talk today about the resonant pitch of a drum shell, and we're going to find out if it actually affects the sound of the drum or not. So some drum companies, namely DW, they test the pitches of their shells and then they stamp the pitch, the resonant pitch of the shell on the inside, just in an effort to indicate what the pitch of the actual shell by itself is. I have been curious about this. I don't own any DW drums, but I do know that it is a resonating body, so it should have a pitch. And we were just feeling a little curious about whether or not this actually has anything to do with how you should tune that drum. A few people have commented on it, and a few people have actually commented that they are actually concerned with hitting certain pitches with their drums based on this sort of philosophy, which it's safe to say I've never done. I've tuned toms to specific pitches on purpose for recording sessions and stuff, but it was never because the drum itself had a note that I was going for. So what we did today is we took apart one of Ben's drums, one of his Pearl Masters, and we actually went a little further and took all the hardware off too, because we are also curious about if adding the hardware makes a difference, because it should if it's a matter of the note of the drum and its capacity to resonate. That's a lot of stuff on there that's going to muffle resonance and deaden the shell, even just the lugs. So we're going to figure out what's going on with this drum and start by playing its pitch for you. We took a tuner to this a few minutes ago and discovered that the shell's pitch is pretty much exactly 30 cents sharp of C sharp. So I'm betting that if this was getting marked in the factory, they would probably stamp it with a C sharp because that's what it's closest to. So the next step is we're going to put all the hardware on and hit it again and see if the pitch changes. I feel like it probably is gonna. All right, we got all the hardware back on, and we actually tested halfway through with just half of the lugs on, but we'll get to the notes at the end. So let's hear how this sounds with all the hardware on. It's going to be a little rattly because these little lug bits are in there. They're going to shake around, but hopefully the pitch will carry for your ears. All right, so we did a little tunering and discovered that the initial pitch of the shell was pretty much dead on C sharp plus about 30 cents. With half the lugs on, it shifted to a C flat by 20 cents. And when we got all the lugs on, we're now at a B flat minus 35 cents. So that's a big jump from the naked shell to just the lugs on. No hoops yet, no heads. And I'm not sure, frankly, like which pitch to go for at this point, because we changed the pitch of the shell by adding mass to it. When we put the hoops on, they're not touching the shell, but they're adding mass to the overall resonating body. What do we even aim for? Well, what we can do is sort of follow the methodology that the idea behind this implies, which is that we're going to tune the heads to the pitch that we think the shell is. So if I bought this drum, I took all this stuff off, but I left the lugs on and I hit it, we're going to start with that pitch. According to videos that we've seen, the intent behind the pitch of the shell is to tune the resonant head to that pitch because it's the resonating head, and then adjust the batter according to taste. So that's what we're going to do. We went ahead and tuned the rezo to the pitch that the shell was with all of the hardware on it, and it was challenging to get it right in there, but I got it within about 3 cents of the pitch of the shell, again with the hardware. And then we muffled this head and checked out the pitch of the shell, and it actually went up to almost a perfect C. It was like 10 cents flat on a C. That does also call into mind the importance of the range that's usable for tuning a head of a certain size drum and have it not be too floppy or have it kind of choke out. If you're headed for a pitch that your shell is with your resonant head and it's way on the outside of the spectrum of what that size of drum will do comfortably, that could be tricky. And this is pretty high for a 12 to me for like a modern tuning. It's quite high. So all that to say, guess we're gonna put the batter on and see what we got. All right, we made it. A lot of fussy tuning and a lot of goofing around, and we have both of the heads within a few cents of both each other and the pitch of the shell when it only had the hardware. And the first thing I noticed is it's tuned real high. To get a B or a C, any of the notes that the shell presented as earlier, you have to go pretty high because to go an octave lower is not feasible on the drum. So let's see what it sounds like for starters. I'm just going to hold it up by the rim and hit it because this drum is normally fitted with an isolation mount, which is more mass to add, and also there might be some weird interactions with the pitches since it mounts to the lugs. So here is this drum with both heads tuned to the pitch of the shell with the hardware on it. I mean, it's almost timbale country. We have a 1-ply on the bottom and a 2-ply on the top, standard tom heads G1, G2. And yeah, I don't really know what to say. I mean, it sounds like a tom for sure. It sounds like a pitched up, pretty high 12 really. But as far as it being more resonant than some other tuning, it's hard to say. We did see that one of the things that goes along with this scheme is to pitch the batter head a little bit higher for a little bit of modern pitch bend. My normal move is to pitch the rezo high and the batter low for pitch bend. So I'm going to bump the batter up a little bit just to see what that does and hit it one more time. Just as another little physics and acoustics aside about this, with both of the heads tuned to kind of flat Bs, the perceived pitch when you actually hit the drum is not a B. It's actually almost a D. And that comes from some phase cancellation, the interaction between the two heads, and it also speaks to that old thing that people say where you can't really tune a two-headed drum to a definite pitch because you've got two pitches interacting, and even if you tune the heads to the same pitch, the ultimate sound that comes out is not the pitch you tuned them to, it's actually something else. So I raised the batter up about a whole step from a flat B to a flat C sharp. Now the tuner to this drum struck altogether is reading a flat E flat instead of a solid D. So, I mean, it's super loud. It's pretty articulate. It feels tight. It feels boppy to me more than rocky for sure. And so I guess what I want to do now is let go of all of this measurement and everything and start from scratch and just tune it the way that I would tune it if I was going to use this drum for a sort of modern pop scenario and figure out what those pitches are. Things just got weird. So I just tuned the drum the way that I would use it, and then I checked the pitches, and it turned out that I tuned the batter to an F sharp and the rezo to an A. And I was like, this sounds great. And Ben said, this sounds great. And then he said, what does the tuner say the drum is at if you just hit the drum? And it's a flat B, which is what the shell was with the hardware on before we put the heads on. So tuning the heads to the pitch that we thought the shell was didn't sound good. But then I tuned the drum for resonance to my ear, got notes neither of which were the pitch of the shell, and then it made the pitch of the shell within about 10 cents. Yeah, that's weird. Well, here's what that sounds like anyways. Now, before you go down the rabbit hole and freak out about the pitch of your shells of your kit, I can't stress it enough. This drum sounds great at lots of different tunings. We've used it for a lot of different things. We've used it in a lot of videos here with different heads, different intervals. It's not important to that degree to worry about the pitch of your shells. It's just super weird that happened to be where this little experiment landed. It's also important to remember that when we took the drum all the way apart, the shell had one pitch with no hardware, a different pitch with half the hardware, and a third pitch with all the hardware on. And as far as we know, when this pitch stamping process happens, we believe that it's done with no hardware and possibly no drilling. But I believe no hardware, just because of the rattle. Like it sounds clearer without it. But putting the hardware on changes it. So yeah, I guess to recap, it's been an interesting experiment to see what was going to happen with this, and it's something that we've been talking about here for a while doing. And I hope you enjoyed it, and at the very least, found it as weird and interesting as we did. And please, as usual, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any experience with this phenomenon, or if you factor it into your tuning, let us know. We're definitely curious. This is the first time that I've ever delved into this at all, and it was definitely super interesting.